All right, thank you for staying with Daybreak, and the State of the Nation conversation starts right now. We're going to talk about matters, politics, and everything in between there. Professor Tom Ojienda, Senator for Kisumu, is here. Asante sana for making time. Honorable Hilary Sigei, Senator for Bomet, is here with us. Thank you very much for making time. We're still waiting for Honorable Dan Manzo, Senator for Makueni, and Franklin Mkwanja, Executive Director, CMD, will be joining us online to have this conversation. Let's start off with the dailies, and you see here on the front page of the Standard, Cabinet to hit the road after rubber stamp. It was a smooth sail in Parliament for 19 Cabinet nominees in spite of hundreds of memoranda sent to MPs on their conduct and pending court cases. John Badi and Opiyo Wandayi even high-fived members when they walked in to bid farewell to the House. Tomorrow, which is today, they will be sworn in amid protest ruckus. And let's start with you, Prof. Are you surprised by the approval of all these CSs, or was this expected?
Thank you very much. Let me say that I expected Parliament, or the National Assembly in this instance, to approve the 19 nominees. I was, however, not surprised that the nominee for Gender, Culture and the Arts, the Honorable Swai, was not approved, because I watched the approval hearings, and I thought that there are a number of questions that begged, and that obviously I would have led to a negative report, and that has come to pass. Yeah. Let me just mention this, that in terms of the memoranda that were received, I think almost 800 memoranda from various corners of the country. Most individuals who wrote were concerned about reappointments. Yet, as I mentioned in the last show, Trevor, you will recall, I said that some of the CSS who were reappointed, Professor Kithure Kindiki, Aden Duale, Soipan Tuya, Alice Wahome, and a couple of others who came in, were competent individuals who had demonstrated industry, who had demonstrated performance, and who had a track record. There's no way, for instance, you're not going to bring back Kindiki into cabinet, because the dissolution that was undertaken by the president when he announced on the 11th of July 2024 that he had disbanded cabinet did not touch on the possible incompetence of any cabinet secretary, did not touch on any misdeed or any malfeasance on the part of any cabinet secretary. He simply dissolved cabinet so that he could begin anew. And as he said, His Excellency the President said, he intended not only to give a reflection of the face of Kenya, but to form a government of national unity. Mm-hmm. It is this framework under the amalgam of national unity that saw a number of cabinet secretaries lose their portfolios, and that saw the emergence of new entrants into cabinet. Yeah. And I think for me, what is important is this. And the president then had to struggle with several issues. Of course, there was the Gen Z question that we have and that we grapple with to date. But apart from the Gen Z issue, there was the question of representation of other political parties and other political formations in government. So as president of the country, emboldened by its constitutional obligation to ensure that the Kenyans feel that they're part of government. Mm-hmm. The president gave an olive branch to the opposition, Azimio, yeah, specifically ODM, and has brought in 4 new faces into cabinet.
But is that what the Gen Zs wanted?
I think, Trevor, the Gen Z question has a myriad of facets. One facet is the incorporation of youth. The other facet is the incorporation of all shades of opinion and competence into government. Gen Zs are not saying that they do not want experienced people. Gen Zs want to see an economy grow. They want to see old hands that will pull this economy from where it is to the next level. They want to see fairness in the process of governance. They want to see inclusion as opposed to exclusion. Yeah. They want to see a government that reflects the face of this country. And I think the president has scored. If you were to mark the president, out of 100%, I would give him 80%.
Okay.
Because one, now we have representation from Mandera to the coast, to Migori, and to Busia. All the regions of this country, Trevor, are in government. Okay. I'll tell you this. Take, for instance, Alias and Joe. Joe brings in the cost question. And not only the cost question, but also the fact that cost is largely viewed as ODM. He brings in a support base that was not hitherto in government. And that is an important point. Honorable Paranya brings in another section that was out there and that felt that they were excluded. Look at Honorable Mbadi from Suba. He brings another cross-section of the entire party that felt that they were not in government. These four people, look at Honorable Wandai, minority leader in the National Assembly, brings in another face that felt left out there. And remember, after Honorable Wandai was appointed, I can see other members of ODM like Alum and others very, very excited and happy and supporting government. This is what we want. We want to see a government that is supported by not just the old, the middle age, but also the youth. And many youth, you will realize, Trevor, have embraced this new formation appointed by His Excellency President.
Have they? Because they are going to protest this morning. But we'll come to that in just a bit. We'll come to that. Let me hear what Sige has to say about this. Sige, there's a general feeling that Parliament was a simple conveyor belt. That this was expected outcome. There's no way they were going to stop any of them except one, which they did. And people say that despite all the memorandum that was sent, despite all the uproar from the people, it was still a smooth sail.
Thank you, Trevor. And I will outrightly disagree with you. And I will disagree for very good reason. One of the things that over time, which I would always say, we would like to encourage Kenyans of all walks of life, whenever there is any conversation surrounding anything, any public concern, including the issues with regards to the cabinet nominees who are appointed, it's normally very important to have an understanding beyond, what we get on the headline or what we get on the social media. It can be that Kenyans, a good number of them would probably be talking about that Parliament was just a conveyor belt, when if you were to ask 1, 2 or 3 of them of the content of the report itself, they'll probably tell you, I listened to the Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah, the leader of majority in the National Assembly, and that is the only reason why they would give an opinion and a position about the value that was put into the debate or the vetting process. Trevor, the report that was submitted by the Speaker of the National Assembly, who actually chairs now the appointment committee, is a 258-page document. I can bet that a good number of those who would probably be the first to comment have not read even a single page of that report. 258-page document is not a conveyor belt for whatever it's worth. They had a lot of industry into it. They looked through whatever was presented, and probably for statistics purposes and for us to understand some of these things. The 258-page document is giving us a background of, first of all, the committee itself, which required it to be established. It is an established committee in law. They give us the membership. And by the way, when you look at the membership to that committee, you'll understand that these are men and women of substance, of a lot of experience, who would understand what it requires or what it takes for one to be a leader. The other thing that most of the people have said, and you have said, in fact, in your inquiry, which is very important to respond to, is that there are so many memoranda that were submitted by very many Kenyans. And to be very precise, we got from the report, for those who have read, I'm one of them, 837 memoranda were submitted for all the nominees, the 20 of them. Out of 837, 123 were handwritten, right? 714 were submitted via the email platform of the committee. The memoranda, because we are a country governed by the rule of law, there is a requirement in law that certain conditions must be met before a memorandum is admitted as evidence for or against a nominee. Out of these 837, 181 complied with the provisions of law, that is in specific provisions of Section 6, subsection 9 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act. 181. 656 did not meet the threshold. That tells you what? We had busybodies, we had haters, we had jokers who decided we just have to write, and emails went without giving substance, without complying with the law. And of interest is that it's not only 181 which were against the nominees. In fact, over 70% were in support of those nominees. So 70% of 181. And all these, Trevor, were analyzed by the committee. And if you were to read that report, you will understand that the industry that went into that vetting process is the one that we expected as Kenyans. And therefore, it cannot pass that we would say the committee or parliament was a conveyor belt. Okay. And as they debated the report yesterday, you listened to the members. Some of those who had read the report, of course, had a lot of accolades to say about the affidavits, the presentation of the nominees, their understanding of the sector, the experiences, and above all, the issue as regards to those who were reappointed to cabinet. Yeah. Of course, came into a lot of discussion in terms of their competence. And as Prof had said, it is not that a number of them were dismissed for want of competence or ability to perform or on integrity issues. Yeah. It was a reaction by the president to the demands of Kenyans at that time that, look, we have gone out to the streets and we are looking at certain changes in government, including one of the things that said is that we need the president to, sack the entire cabinet for a new beginning. And this is where we are today. So I'm a proud parliamentarian today because of what happened yesterday in Parliament and what President, of course, decided to do in exercise of his constitutional mandate. And of course, as we've always said, being a listening president, he listened to the people of Kenya, brought in new faces, reappointed those whom in his view had performed very well in the dockets that they were in. And in this particular report, they have even recommended to the president that among these nominees, there are some whom we feel that though they have been appointed to certain dockets, they are excellent performers in other dockets and would recommend to the president to exercise his mandate to reassign them to those specific dockets. And probably would be looking forward to even certain reshuffle based on the reports that came in from the parliamentary committee.
And joining us now is Honorable Dan Manzo, Senator for Makueni. Manzo, were you surprised by the outcome of the vetting, or was this expected?
Well, to a large extent, it was expected. And what is most important is that, the memoranda and consideration of a memoranda and the report made out of memoranda. That is what becomes the missing link when it comes to vetting. I've been to the National Assembly for 10 years. These two just joined us the other day. And I'm very familiar with what happens there. It is most unlikely that the list will change from what the president has presented. And in a lot of times, there will be, a lot of heated debates. And then some people will fail questions openly. And then eventually, the president in the previous days will still have his way. But we saw that one person was rejected And the rejection does not mean that she's not fit for other jobs. And you heard Ishunga say that you need to go back to the same village, to the same locality, and get somebody else. The shortcoming of this particular candidate was lack of experience in civil service and and having a short CV in many things. I believe there are very many young people who are competent and can still, even without those many other experiences, can still make it. For me, this particular candidate was crucified for the benefit of quite a number of people who had serious issues with, owing to their history, owing to their dealings with public funds in the past. And I believe this particular one, although has been rejected, and another name has to be presented. When another name comes, I believe it should be from the younger people. The government is lacking the benefit of having the Gen Zs in their midst. You see the Gen Zs is a new world, and the older people have a different way of perceiving things, in terms of running the country. And if you listen to the young people, there are very many ideas as to how the country can be made better, and they are also well-read, and they are using modern technology to access a lot of information. So I believe they will be very useful given an opportunity in cabinet. We have seen what has happened. Where people are dissatisfied, they are still allowed to pursue it in court, where they are dissatisfied with the report and the manner in which this was conducted. Remember, it was rushed. Remember, it is largely of political goodwill, and it's largely politics, which results into appointment. You see, a long time ago, the president would just appoint anybody and disappoint them anytime. But the new constitution has come up with new arrangements on how Parliament should approve. But Parliament is still largely a rubber stamp of the executive. Hardly will Parliament fight what has come from the executive. And even if it tries to fight, there will be those who want to really push the agenda of the executive inside Parliament. And I think that's where we have largely gone wrong, whereby members of Parliament assume that they are working for the executive. The whole of Parliament is supposed to check the executive, both majority and minority. All of majority are not ministers of the government. But that, unfortunately, since we started in 2013, implementing the 2010 constitution, that is what has been happening. That has become the culture. That the majority, which we copied from the US, that's not what happens from in America. You find the whole Parliament is checking government. But here, whoever majority, they are already government, and the few minorities are the ones who are checking government, and therefore that's where a lot of things have gone wrong. Institutions have been weakened. The Parliament institution be one of it. Many other institutions are weak, which are supposed. You saw the fight between the ODPP, the office of the Department to prosecute. The Constitution has given a lot of power to the DPP, that you determine whether you will prosecute or not prosecute. And you see, EACC will say, we have sufficient evidence. And you saw a fight of those two institutions, but the executive won. Even through Parliament. And the rest now is left to Kenyans, who have now been left helplessly to watch the government, to do the work of Parliament. Instead of members of Parliament they elect. And we have seen the impunity in which, the leaders of majority have operated with their law themselves. They are like the Hammurabi laws. Whatever they say is cast on stone. And no one can change it, and they will force it and make sure that carries the day. That is really not democracy. Democracy is where ideas must flow freely, and objections must be addressed freely. And I believe we'll still look at this report and all the memorandums which were sent. And affidavit. And even how many of those people have been called to come and testify? None. We only saw, the applicants, the nominees and the parliament exchanging. We did not see quite a number of serious people, like 2 or 3. You rather even push it for 2 weeks. but get justice done.
Okay.
Kenyans must get a sense of justice.
Okay. And Prof, do you agree that Parliament is largely a rubber stamp of the executive, like Manzo says?
I don't know what Parliament Manzo belongs to. The Parliament I belong to, the Senate I belong to, under Article 96 of the Constitution, undertakes oversight. And Manzo is an active member of Senate. He knows well that we operate under standing orders. Under standing orders, Trevor, the vetting process under the Parliamentary Appointments Act, Section 6, as you read down, defines how or who sits in the approval committee, and that's chaired by the Speaker. Leaders of minority, leaders of majority. Basically, the co-leadership in Parliament sits in that committee.
Yeah.
So, and the co-leadership gave an opportunity to Kenyans to submit memoranda. The standing orders dictate how the process is undertaken, and the participation was robust. We've talked about 837 memoranda that was submitted by the public. And again, Trevor, you will have noted that members of the committee raised every single question, including doubts that they had over qualifications, for instance, of CS Joe. They had issues about competence of a number of CSS to undertake functions of the various ministries. And you saw responses from CSS. They were concerned about competence, about the ability to learn and to manage affairs within ministries. You had new nominees, for instance, like Julius Ongama, coming in and demonstrating that they have the ability to run a ministry as important as the Ministry of Education. And I don't think that Parliament fell short of its obligation or duty to navigate the imperatives that are required for approval hearings. I think Manzo here, who, of course, is a member of ODM, of Wiper, I think his only concern is that he lost the ship. You know, Manzo's Wiper had a chance to get into government. To grab. Yes, to grab. You know, you are the aegis position. You are given the aegis position. They refused, Trevor. And Manzo is simply unhappy that we have a constituted government that has ODM and Wiper is not in it. and Manzo, I think it is important to be honest that you lost the opportunity to navigate the oxbow lakes in politics. You know, in politics, and this is important,
that is short-lived.
You must seize the moment. It's not short-lived. This is a government that is going to deliver for the people of this country. And what we must do is, as a country, Trevor, is pull together and rescue a country in the hour of need. And that is what ODM did. And that is what the people of Kenya have done in bringing forth this government that Manzo is not happy about.
No.
So I think Manzo's problems are, and then you also.
I'm happy to remain in opposition.
You also given the ESC ministry. You declined 2 ministries.
Who was given those ministries?
The ODM Wiper, and then we spoke about it. He did not agree. He said he will not take those positions. And now here he is crying all over the place.
I'll give you a chance to respond, but let's bring in Sigei first of all. Sigei, Manzo also mentioned something that Parliament is now just largely a rubber stamp of the executive, and Kenyans are left hopeless to be the opposition by themselves.
It's surprising that such a statement would come from my senior colleague, both in Parliament and in the profession, Senator Manzo here. He has been in the National Assembly. He knows how the National Assembly operates, particularly by virtue of his position as a lawyer, as a legislator of repute. I know that must have been said in jest, because when you look at how this committee in Parliament, the Committee on Appointments now, let's concentrate on this issue, it comprised 21 solid members of Parliament, 21 of them. I'm happy he's admitted that he's not read the report, and so his comments are informed by the general conversation in public, which of course he knows.
I follow the parliamentary proceedings.
No, I'm talking about the report. And so when you look at what the 21-member committee did in the course of their vetting process, it cannot pass to be referred to as a rubber stamp. It can't pass to be referred to as a conveyor belt of the executive Two, it really does not fly to say that the majority leaders of the House are law unto themselves. This committee, Trevor, is chaired by the Speaker of the National Assembly, the Right Honorable Moses Wetangula. It doesn't then mean, nor does it even justify an engagement on it, that the majority leader would be taking charge, speaking, and the Speaker and the rest of the 21 members are helpless and unable to do anything. No. So I don't agree with Manzo on that aspect. The back and forth engagements that were involved in did not, in my own assessment and in the assessment based on the report, it was not a rush. It was something that was done within the confines of the relevant standing orders as well as the law. And when it comes to the memorandum and also the comments that we got, especially with regard to some of the candidates where we had ESCC and the Director of Public Prosecution giving a response, you know, they were saying we have this mandate and this is the position. And unless we have gotten a finding in court that says so-and-so has been found to be guilty of this and therefore unfit to hold office, we will, and this one I do not think to, I don't want to belabor it because Mr. Honorable Manzo understands this, is something that we would all want to have an opportunity to also give to the Kenyan who's being alleged or accused of improprieties, and also now the rest of the Kenyans who have complained, an opportunity to make sure that we also confine ourselves into the law, because today it is me who is applying that law. Tomorrow it is Manzo who's doing it. So it's the political ping pong. It's unfortunate for my friend Manzo and the team from MIPA, because they probably had expectations, as Prof has said, and these expectations were not met. And therefore, it's the entitlement to challenge and say, look, this is just one of those things that we felt is a sinking ship, in his own words, and therefore we shouldn't get involved in it. But I would like to just correct the perception that we have seen. The President appointed very competent Kenyans. Parliament has approved those Kenyans to serve in the various positions of the cabinet secretaries. Notwithstanding the fact that Stella Soy, who was rejected by the committee, definitely had issues, and reading that report, by the way, it is, if you look at, I read, I think, from paragraph 1098, because I went through the report. They have run through the CV of Stella, and almost 10 paragraphs from paragraph 1098 running through, they have confirmed the qualifications of this lady. Yeah. That she's academically fit to hold such an office. Okay. She has got all the requisite experience running from the public service and public offices she's held before. And it is only in the finding that they are saying from her appearances before the committee in the question time during the vetting, there are certain limitations that, according to the committee, she did not exhibit to, to approve her suitability to the particular docket that she was appointed to be. And how I wish then that committee would have said that because of all these qualifications, this only lack of direct and satisfactory responses to the specific questions on the docket that she'd been appointed to, she would have been passed. And now with the rider, which actually the committee has given to the President to consider reassigning to other
different ministries. But see, you talk about this report, 258 pages. It was tabled at 12:36.
Yes. And
the debate was at 3 p.m. That is 2 hours, 24 minutes. So it means each and every lawmaker read a page in 40 seconds. Is that
this is how it happens, Trevor, because we have the standing orders. We also are dealing with a time-bound report. In essence, even for me, we didn't, for instance, participate as a Senate in the process of vetting and also in the debate.
So none of you actually read the whole report? By the time
by the time the House passed the names, and the report, of course, approved the report. Well, probably not everybody had read the 258 pages, and as a matter of fact, by the way, 258 pages for a serious reader.
So it means then there was no point in the report, because then it was almost largely believed by the parliamentary team that this is a rubber stamp, so let's just pass it.
No.
Because otherwise then you'd have been given time to go through it and agree or disagree.
I do not agree with you on that, because, Trevor, when you know what you're looking for example, when it comes to a document, it does not necessarily mean that you've got to read line by line. I'm not saying it is not necessary, but in the circumstances that the parliament was in the circumstances of the report that was being tabled, remember the speaker, prior to even opening up the floor of the House to debate the report, they agreed that each member will speak, for instance, to the report within 3 minutes. So 3 minutes still is such a short time to speak to a report, to provide accolades, to debate on it. But in the circumstances that we are in, considering the committee, by the Trevor, they sat on it, including on Sunday, the whole day.
Yeah.
And thereafter retreated the entire of Monday to do a report. So it could be that there could be a little bit of deficiencies in terms of the time that was available for the debate.
Yeah.
But largely, I would say, we, in the context of that report, did a good job as Parliament. And therefore, it is time to reroute our energies back on track, allow the President to now deliver for the people of Kenya. Place aside the politics. We now have a government of national unity. We have very competent cabinet secretaries who will be sworn in this morning. And Trevor, I'll be joining them at State House for the swearing in. We want to give them, the support that they deserve, so that they deliver for the people of Kenya. I have to take a quick break once. When you come back, that's where we start, because in as much as they're being sworn in, the Gen Zs have a different idea. In fact, the president himself also mentioned the whole country. It means he was now spreading the risk. But no, the whole country. I have to take a break now. When you come back, we'll talk about that. Also send in your views at Trevor Pidge at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Daybreak.
No.